Welcome to Becoming a HubSpot Superadmin, where we talk to admins who have become HubSpot, lived the journey, and are telling you about their stories of becoming. Today, we have Scott Flanigan in the mountains of Colorado with Squad 4. Welcome to the podcast, Scott.
Thank you, Matt. I'd love to share my pain and journey with you.
Yeah, I can't wait to hear it. We have a tradition here at the Becoming a HubSpot super admin, and that is number one is, if HubSpot wasn't your superpower, what would your superpower be?
Ooh, that's the only one I had. My superpower. Ooh, I don't know. I don't think of them as superpowers, but my journey, my career path is interesting. I was, in knowledge management and technical writer. So
Let me say it differently. What would your superpower be? What would you want to have? What would be
what would I want to have?
Yep.
I wish I could speak every language.
Speak every language. Some people call it speaking in tongues, Scott. Depending on what background you're from. Okay, so you would be HubSpot superpower, and you would love to be able to speak in tongues. I mean, have a superpower that allows you to see everywhere.
Except other CRM languages. I don't need those.
Except anything that's HubSpot.
I won't say any name.
What is one thing that only your mother knows about you?
Oh, sorry, Mom. I don't share enough with you.
Where
do these questions come from? You tricked me into this conversation. That only my mother knows about me. How awful it was the first year I worked for myself and dug myself into debt. Because she was the one I called when I was like, I need someone to talk to about this.
Seems like lots of lessons to be learned from that question. Thank you for being vulnerable about that. And so let's dive in, because that's part of the journey. We're here to talk about our journey about HubSpot. So Scott, tell me, how did what were you doing before HubSpot? Like we all have this, like, sometimes conversion stories, or how did you find yourself working in HubSpot? What were you doing before? Just walk me through.
Sure. I was an English major and a tech kid. I played a lot of video games.
Okay. Favorite video game was?
Yeah.
What was your favorite?
Ooh. I mean, there's different phases. There's Metal Gear Solid. I played too much WoW, Diablo. There was a MUD, multi-user domain, all text-based game that I was ridiculed for because it was like the Matrix. Like, your fight sequences were literally streams of text that would come out, and you'd had like rounds that you would go back and forth.
So you weren't English major that played lots of video games to the extent he used essentially wrote code.
It was building interfaces and using macros to like one up the competition.
Okay.
And I wasn't even very good.
I feel like I learned a lot about Scott. Okay, continue. So you were an English major that played lots of video games.
But yeah, I like organizing, creating stories, creating experiences. So I went from that, kind of like dabbled in knowledge management processes, like went kind of through the BA and process management, moved into like the digital and marketing space, did a lot of web design, and then transitioned from that into working in Salesforce, ServiceNow, building out systems for knowledge and learning, and connecting digital watering holes.
So how long were you? You're an English major. How did you find yourself in Salesforce? I understand, like, you did those things, but what happened?
Yeah, I don't know. I always want a new problem. If I don't have a new problem, I make a new problem for myself. And anyway, I worked for an organization that struggled to bring their knowledge to their customer base. And so that's when that was my first like dabbling into some level of admin with Salesforce. But it was on the fringe. I wasn't in charge of the system. I got to see other people manage that for a group of salespeople.
So you're a technical writer that helps salespeople sell things, and create the knowledge base, the knowledge document for it.
I
You saw
worked,
Salesforce used.
yeah, and I worked with a super talented, it was a team of two of us, super talented, other technical writer who, what really was the moment of like, oh my gosh, cross-functional lean teams can be amazing if they break down silos and work with other departments, as opposed to coming up with everything in a corner, right? We went directly to the support team and we're like, what's happening on all your calls? Where's the problem and the pain? Let's solve for that first and make sure that our customers have easy access to diagrams and not words, right? Like solve your problems. So within a very short period of time, we cut the problems in half.
So you learned, so you're a technical writer that worked the CS teams to understand problem sets that were in the product you're doing. You saw Salesforce being used in some capacity, maybe even with the CS team or ServiceNow, however they're doing it. Then what happened? What happened next? Where'd you
go? I got burned out on that job. So I left and worked for myself for a year. And then I ended up going back into a full-time, career job while I was kind of doing and continuing to support small businesses and work on the side. And I did.
Was that an agency?
You went and worked? No, that was another cybersecurity firm. But worked for them for a period of time. Similar thing, stitching together pieces, kind of being the webmaster / marketing / really small team that punches way above their weight class.
What was your role called? You're like, just to help me. What were you called?
Title never means anything.
but received. Yes. I just want to like, what were you? Because it's helpful for people as they think about their journey. Like, what role did you literally say yes to?
So I went from technical writer to content manager, essentially.
Okay. And then content manager for a more marketing, go-to-market function.
Okay. Then that break. Then I went and worked for the cybersecurity company and a webmaster marketing manager.
Okay. So for technical writer, that was more CS to go-to-market teams doing marketing. And so at that time, when did you first run into HubSpot? Did you run into HubSpot yet at this point?
Yes, I started on a free marketing automation tier back in like 2012 or 13.
Is that for job number one, or?
That was for my personal. I was like, the systems that we have in place for work are painful and cumbersome. Like I need to start dabbling and testing new things.
That sounds like someone plays a lot of video games. You're like, I'm not okay with this piece of software that I have.
I want something better, and I'm going to run. I'm sure I'm going to experience a bunch of poor systems before I find the right one.
I love that. So you literally, no one had it. So often when I do these journeys, people use the system they're given. And so you went out and said, I don't like the system I was given. Let me find, I just want to understand better ones. How did you learn HubSpot?
Oh, that's a good question. And I didn't really learn it to the level, I didn't really fully dive in until about the pandemic 2020. Right in 2017, 18, we had an instance of HubSpot that was connected to Salesforce. And so that became oh my gosh, we have to manage both of these structures simultaneously. Like there's problems in both. We need to match them up and solve the problems. And so those are all abstract and trying to communicate out the challenges there and what change management's needed.
Yeah, everybody stop for a second and hear, if you are managing a HubSpot and Salesforce, having two databases is multiplicably more difficult. Please stop it and pick one.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, that's what I heard from what you just said, Scott. So you faced that challenge. What happened in 2020 that was, hey, I'm going to go all in on HubSpot.
Yeah. So then I migrated away from a web manager, marketing manager into like a digital transformation consultant type role, like a project manager architect, and was working with Salesforce and a ServiceNow instance. We built out ServiceNow instance for field service manager or field service engineers and our end user customer. So we could provide training and knowledge. Lots of folks struggled through the pandemic. I had a contract that was extended because we were right at the point. We actually launched the platform that we built like the week the world shut down. which was incredible because getting to see like that the business continue to be able to support their mission while there, like lots of other organizations who were behind the curve just like stopped, hospitals shut down, like all
Yeah,
kinds of
everybody
stuff happened.
leaves, and now there's a cloud-based system that everyone's forced to use and adopt. And adoption becomes much
Mandatory.
easier to
Yeah.
adopt.
It's a beautiful
So,
thing when it happens.
so you were doing Salesforce. You had worked on HubSpot. You liked HubSpot. You experienced HubSpot. You got contract. You're doing contract work where you're building out a Salesforce ServiceNow instance. And then what made you go full time? Maybe there's a HubSpot there too.
Yeah.
What
So that's
happened?
thank you. That's where the transition happened. My contract got ended, right? All the consultants were let go. So it was, right, what do I want to do? Well, a lot of folks, I don't blame anyone. I don't want to go out and job search in an economy like that. So I started up an agency with a former business partner, or a former business colleague. And we both have been in positions our entire careers where it was like, figure out how to drive the mission. And we've got a smorgasbord of different platforms to use. Like, we want to use this or we want to use that. So we're like, no, let's dive in and choose one. And my previous experience with HubSpot, I was like, this one's great. Like, let's just go with it. And it happened to coincide with the period of time where HubSpot had been making a ton of investments and dipped their toe to the ring. And we're like, we're creating a full scale enterprise CRM solution.
So then you started to get really, I mean, I'm assuming at that point you started to go heads deep into HubSpot. How did you learn HubSpot once you decided to go full in HubSpot? What did you do?
Yeah.
What are the best resources?
I don't want to talk bad about anyone, and it's not bad. Like their training courses are awesome, but there is no better teacher than actually just doing something. So, for me, pick a challenge. How do we structure all of this data and build processes that are really lean and elegant?
I'm going to rephrase what you just said, because this is for people who are listening to this for the first time. Admin, because often people are asking, hey, how do I learn HubSpot? And when we say, hey, just do it, which is semi what you said, it's difficult because they don't even know what to even try, and nor do they have the problem sets or the understanding. So it sounds like you worked in systems, you'd been a technical writer, you knew how processes worked. Like, I just want to build this thing out. What would your recommendation be? I'm going to move to like next step.
Thank you for that. Yeah.
What is your recommendation for people who have new to HubSpot? So like people that want to make a career, like you're like, hey, I can make a career. I can be successful. I can have a whole business. As we're thinking about like, what are the three things you would lead people with? What are the three things you would do to learn HubSpot?
So first off, joining the HubSpot partner program is super helpful, because if you haven't ever done it, they give you like at least some guidance and like requirements of what you need to do to onboard a new client, what they need to know. Visual documentation of process is super helpful. Like, I'm talking like an entity relationship diagram, like build out an ERD so you think about these concepts from an object to object standpoint. That was super helpful for me. And then otherwise, yeah, I guess that's maybe two. What is the experience people have? How do you make their jobs as easy as possible? Because there's a number of reasons folks aren't going to adopt a new tool. Like, put yourself in the shoes of the folks that use it every day. And I had spent a lot of time being the one who was frustrated by the tool or the one using it all the time.
So what I heard is make sure I'm capturing this correctly. Number one is, can you repeat what you said? I've already forgot.
Visual diagramming, I think, is one, because we can build anything, but does it make sense to, like, it shouldn't be difficult. We can draw simple objects and see how they play together from a like a database standpoint, but also how they fit into a business, a progressive business process.
With number two,
that one, two is what's the end user experience, and what's the goal? Three was vague.
Received. I have we have a becoming a HubSpot at superadmin like post. I've even created a whole framework for this. It's called the 5 stages of a HubSpot admin. One of those is you need to be able to draw the ERD of HubSpot without looking. I think it's extremely helpful. I would also say, as much as the HubSpot Academy is not as useful as you think it is, but it is a good starting point. I still think you get your certifications. It gives you the common language. And if this was your number one, if you're in the partner program, there's actually better training. So when you think about how do I learn, you really have two options. You need to get end user experience. That means you need to work at a company that's using HubSpot, or you need to go to an agency that's implementing it. So those are some clear ways.
Totally. HubSpot's training is incredible. Yeah. Get your certifications, the RevOps certification, learn the different hubs or the hub you want to be an expert in, but understand how you're impacting and being, interacting with the other departments. Cause that's the beauty of it. They don't get into the tactical, which is actually a benefit and a good thing, because the rate at which they're improving the system and changing it, I wouldn't want them to bake that into a number of those courses.
Yeah, that's a really good point that I haven't thought about as much. It's probably why they haven't. It's just, it would be difficult to keep up with. Well, Scott, I appreciate you. I love that there's unique journeys for everybody. Scott Flanigan is a HubSpot. He owns a HubSpot agency called Squad 4. He's committed his life doing HubSpot. He is a HubSpot super admin. If you don't believe me, watch some of his stuff on LinkedIn. Look what he's been doing with Super as well. And he started as an English major and technical writer. That played lots of video games. So when you think about these diverse, like, it's okay, no matter where you are today, you can get where you want to be. And that is okay. So guys, as we go out, I'll say, you can too become a super HubSpot admin. Take Scott's journey, learn from it, and know, where can we reach you, Scott, if someone wanted to ask you more questions about today?
Sure. Shoot me an email at scott@squad4.io.
Sweet.
Or find me on LinkedIn.
Find them on LinkedIn.
The last thing I'll say is craft experiences and focus on the big picture. Like, the strategy is the most important. I love helping small business owners overcome their challenges and, achieve things they didn't think were possible in a simple and intuitive way. And anyone can go spin up a developer instance on HubSpot and dabble with it. You don't have to go join an agency or this. Of course, money and income is the lifeblood for what you want to do, and that's a separate podcast.
That is a good point. HubSpot developer accounts have enterprise level everything, and you don't need, it's not gated at all. Scott's a really good point. Well, Scott, I appreciate you being on the podcast. Everybody, stay awesome. Keep doing it big and stay super. Adios, Sprocketeers.